Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit in this class, and the reason why we're doing that is because when I gave you the assignment to come up with a topic for your paper and for you to find some theories for that paper, there were some hiccups there, and a lot of people didn't understand. The light bulb went off for a few people, but for the most part, there was confusion, and to some extent, I don't think some of you still got it. So we're going to step back a little bit and do what I would refer to as thinking about theory in a natural sense. And that is, you have a book, and your book is good, but it doesn't teach you how theory is utilized in a natural sense. And that is how, if you were going to research a topic, how you would come up with theory to describe that topic for whatever purpose you're looking at that topic. And for the purpose of this class, you have a paper. And I asked you in that paper to research the paper topic and then figure out what theories are being discussed in that paper or around that topic, and then um, tell me what three theories you would use for your potentially for your paper. And a lot of you had problems with that. So in doing that, I tried to figure out what the problems or the issues were, and that is most of you are thinking about it from the a textbook related issue, and that is you the textbook tells you something, you repeat it back to me, and that's what you're supposed to do. Well, that's not how we think about theory. Okay, so now in terms of theory, we research a problem and then we figure out what theories apply, what explanations, and that's what theories are, explanations for why the behavior exists, or the ideas, or you can look at behavior, perceptions, and one other thing that I can't think of right now, behavior, perceptions, and I can't think of the third thing. So natural way of looking, or natural way of using, or using theory, or developing theoretical explanations for a problem. And the reason why the way I'm going to tell you how to look at theory um, is the way you should, is that a lot of times the problems that you seek to understand are not criminal justice related. So as long as you know how to research your problem and come up with a problem set, for example, then developing or coming up with theory to explain those things would be a lot easier. Say, for instance, you wanted to look at issues of, I don't know, one thing that we look at is why women stay in domestic violence situations. Why women stay in domestic violence situations. Okay? And if you look at this particular topic, we don't typically research this type of topic in criminal justice, although it's a criminal justice related topic. It's a victimization topic. But typically we look at why somebody is a victim. Okay, so why someone is a victim. And we also look at what makes someone a perpetrator, a perpetrator of domestic violence. Also known as interpersonal violence these days, okay? Or IPV. All right. So these two topics are what we typically look at, but note that these two topics does not address the first topic I propose, and why do women stay in domestic violence situations? And so if you were to go and look at why someone might be a victim of domestic violence, or look at why somebody might perpetrate domestic violence, you won't get the same explanations for why they might stay in these types of situations. And so it's important to first note what is your topic, okay? And I'm going to give you a series of steps to do this. And then you're going to have a rubric assigned to this. And based on this rubric, you will be graded on these different things, okay? And so the point is that you will then be given a set um, of situations to come up with a topic, and then develop a problem, and then research theory surrounding that problem. And that is the natural progression of how we do theory in the field, okay? And so this is how you should naturally think and consider theory in this area. And then I'm going to teach you how to use the theory, and that is critiquing a theory, and that is coming up with the underlying assumption, the structure, strengths and weaknesses, and policy implications. Okay? All right, so step one is come up with a topic. Okay? All right, and then I'm going to explain each one of these. Step two would be then to narrow that topic to a problem. Step three would be to research and find theory or explanations for the behavior, thoughts, attitudes under review or under research. Let me say that, under review or research. Step four would be to research that theory. Once you find it, you need to research the theory. Okay? And then step five would be to critique the theory. Okay? Alright, so let's go back to step one. Come up with a topic. Okay? So say you want to look at domestic violence, going along with our topic, or our original example, domestic violence or interpersonal violence, because this is how it's reviewed now in the theory. There's several ways you can look at this. All right, there's several different types of domestic violence. You can look at partner or spousal abuse. You can look at child abuse. You can look at elder abuse. All right, and I think that's basically all of the different types. All right, but within each one of these, there's different nuances that can be discovered or researched, and those nuances come here under step two. I know some of these nuances because domestic violence has been one of my areas of research. But if you don't know what those are, and you can speculate on what some of those things might be, but to know for sure or know what the research is talking about regarding that, you would need to go and research that topic. And that's step two. Narrow the topic to a problem. And to do that, you need to research it. Go and do a library research. Research the topic using library or academic resources. Okay? And for the purpose of this class, the library, Shepherd Library, Shepherd Library. Um, Edited, where you can find articles, and edited books, as well as government resources. Are the only options that you have. Okay? And that is to ensure that what you pull will be something that is worthy of looking at. Okay? Now, for articles and edited books, you strictly go to the library for those. For government resources, you can actually go to actual government websites for these as well. You can use the Shepherd Library, but I find it's easier to just go directly to government websites. Actual government websites. Alright, to use this. Sometimes, and I didn't think about this, sometimes foundations or um, private research organizations publish research as well that is worthy, such as the Ford Foundation, the Research Triangle Institute, which is one here in North Carolina that is huge worldwide. You can go to like Apt Associates. You can go to a lot of different um, private entities also publish their own data, but you have to make sure that it is. But a lot of the other thing is a lot of that research is also published through government resources, because most of the time their research is funded by a government entity. Okay? All right. All right. So you go to do the research to narrow your topic. And so how do you do that? Well, once you put in your search term, say domestic violence or interpersonal violence, or more specifically partner or spousal abuse, then you go in, you put those search terms in, and you see what pops up. All right, what is the research that pops up in those areas, and then based on the research or articles that are being published, then you can start narrowing your topic. Okay, you can start narrowing the topic. Say, for instance, you want to look at partner abuse. All right. Um, oh, another one that I didn't think of is stalking. Stalking is becoming a big thing, and this is considered a domestic violence issue. Say, for instance, you want to look at stalking. And the reason why I know a little bit about this now is I have a graduate student who's looking in this area. Stalking is an interesting area in that most of the time it is a stranger related thing, as well as but it could be somebody you know as well, and so it's an interesting little area to get into. All right, let's focus on partner or spousal abuse. All right, when you go and look at the research, you might find that there's research on the perpetrator. There's research about victims. You can look at same-sex partner abuse. Now, note, I'm not just coming up with these things. I've already done the research, so I know what's out there. Same-sex partner abuse. You can, that's one way to narrow it. And then you start looking into, once you narrow it to this point, then you need to focus in on one of these areas. Okay? Perpetrator, victims, same-sex partner abuse, and that becomes an issue of whether or not you're looking at the victim or the perpetrator as well. Okay? So with partner or spousal abuse, you need to focus, there's two main focuses, the perpetrator or the victim. And so once you narrow it that way, then you need to go back and do some more research, because again, you don't have a narrowed enough topic. And say, for instance, you want to look at the victim. All right? So you decide to say, I want to focus on the victim. And so then you start doing the research again on you go back and start narrowing your search terms again. So interpersonal violence or domestic violence and research. I mean, and victims. And so based on that, you go in and do the search term and see what pops up. Okay. One thing that you might focus on is you might find out, for instance, um, I know that when I was doing research in this area, one of the things I found out was um, um, issues of what makes them stay, what make victims stay in these types of relationship. Okay. You also might look at, you might find information on factors that contribute to victimization. Factors that contribute to victimization. And so what that research will look at is what is the profile of a victim? Okay? And so they look at certain factors that make people that tend to make people victims or make them likely to be victims. Okay? So we'll go with these two. All right? There may be other topics that you can narrow it to, but for the most part, these are two that are potential that you could find in the research. Okay? So based on this, now you have a narrowed enough topic that we started off with domestic violence or interpersonal violence. We said we wanted to focus on partner or spousal abuse. Let me put these in Roman numerals so that we can see where we are. That should be an I. Alright, and this would be A. This would be B. And then these would be and then up under 2, we said we are going to focus on victims. These would then fall up under there. So I'm going to cut and paste those out. Cut, paste. And then this would be little I. That would be 1 little I. And then this would be 2 little i's. Alright. 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 And so this is where we decided to make our focus here. We say victims will be our focus. And up under that we did some more research. Remember that even though I'm talking about these things, remember I've already done the research. It takes time to get this done because you have to go and do library research to narrow these topics. It could take hours, even though I'm doing this in minutes. Okay? Remember, again, I've already researched this, so I know what's out there. Okay? We've narrowed the topic, and now our topic focus on one of these, what make victims stay in these relationships, or factors that contribute to victimization. So let's focus on this one. So I'm going to copy this one and put it down here. So this is my narrowed focus now. And paste it. Okay. And the reason why I know what this is my thesis was on this topic, so I can tell you what I did to get it to this point. Alright? What made victims stay in these relationships, and what ended up being my topics are factors. The final topic ended up being factors that, let me go back. formal and informal factors that impact um, victims who stay in domestic violence situations, domestic violence relationships. Okay, so this ended up being my narrow topic, and all that was based on research that I had done um, in the library. Okay, I researched the topic. I saw that there was an issue with things such as the problem set ended up being things such as people stayed because they had children, for example, children, finances. Well, they were afraid to leave. I found issues in the research that talked about children finances afraid to leave, um, um, lack of support from family members. So if they left, where would they go? In other words, and then we had other factors such um, as um, what were some of the other factors? Religious reasons. I forget some of the other ones. Religious. Housing issues, and some other ones. I can't think of them right now. Okay, so I started researching these things again. So when I did my research, I found there was articles out there why people stay because of children, finances. I found some articles about just the psychology of it. They were afraid to leave, and then lack of support from family. So, and then I wrote all those things down, and I said, okay, some of these things are formal factors, and then some of them are informal factors. In other words, formal factors are things that are handled by, say, institutions or can be handled by institutions. Informal factors are things related to, I would say, the person themselves. So I said that this was an informal factor because it was related to the person themselves. Even though finances are related to the person, finances has to do with job related issues. It could deal with welfare, that kind of thing. So finances, I consider a formal factor. Afraid to leave, this is psychology. It has to do with the individual. So I said this was an informal factor. Lack of family support would be informal. Religious reasons would be formal, because that would be an institutional. Housing issues, I'd call that a formal issue. Okay, so I researched all this and found that these were the things that were being discussed in the research. And so I pulled them out and said, these are the things I want to focus on for my research. And so then I came up with this final topic: formal and informal factors that impact those who stay in domestic violence relationships. All right. All that was done through researching this area here, researching and using the library for the purposes of narrowing that topic. Step 3 was then research and find theory explanations for the behavior, thoughts, or attitudes on the review or research. So then I took my topic, literally how it's written, copy, took this topic, and I started pulling those same articles and seeing what theories were being discussed. So at the same time that you're narrowing your topic, you're pulling articles and seeing what theories are being discussed. So it's not like, oh, you do one and then go back and do the other. You're doing them simultaneously. Okay? So pulling the articles, printing them. I'll call it pulling. All right. You don't necessarily have to print them in these days and age. You can email them to yourself. You can save them on your hard drive and then go through them. And then later you might decide to print. Pulling the articles and then seeing what theories were being used as explanations for the behavior. Under review. And in this case, the behavior under review was formal and informal factors that impact victims of domestic violence. And first I will look at formal factors that impact victims of domestic violence, and then I'll look at informal factors that impact victims of domestic violence. And if that didn't pull anything, I went back to my original list up here. Children, finances, afraid to leave, psychology, lack of support from family members. I started using those as my search terms to pull articles. Okay? After I found articles, and the theories I came up with were related to, there's a theory out there called learned helplessness. And then there's excuse me, there's a social learning theory out there by Rotter. I can't think of the name of the actual social learning theory. And then there's an attribution theory out there by somebody else. Hyder? Was it Hyder? I think it was. Okay? Now, all of these are paradigms. Alright? There's a whole genre of learned helplessness theories out there. There's a whole genre which we've already discussed of social learning. Rotter just has a theory out there on social learning that he uses as it relates to people who stay in domestic violence situations and as the victim. Attribution theory is a paradigm. Again, it's the umbrella. There's several theories out there related to attribution, but Hyder has one that related best to domestic violence and victims who stay in those situations. So these are the three theories you came up with. That's after doing the research. These are the theories that were being discussed in the articles that I pulled. Okay? And so I researched the articles and researched after I found those articles, then I went in and started researching the theories. So literally you go back in and you start researching the theories. You use the search term learned helplessness theory or learned helplessness and see what articles pop up. Okay? You might be pointed toward books at this point. Okay? Because a lot of these theories are developed in books. Alright? And this is one time that books might be your friend. Alright? Rotter's social learning theory is in a book. And then Hyder's attribution theory. All these theories were in books. Alright? And you go and pull the books. And you research the theory. And you critique the theory. Okay? The underlying assumption. Structure. Strengths and weaknesses. And then sometimes policy implications. If you do a formal critique like this, you also want to put in your policy implications. And you do that for each theory. So what are the underlying assumptions? The underlying assumption is the thing that this theory hinges on. It's the tenet for which the reason why the theory exists. For instance, attribution theory. Hyder's attribution theory says that people attribute their behavior, their feelings, or their thoughts toward something based on whether or not they believe they're responsible for it or that somebody outside of them or something outside of them is responsible for that. Alright? So in other words, if I'm in a domestic violence situation, I might believe I'm a victim because of something that I've done. Or I might believe I'm a victim because of something outside of me. He did it. He's the problem. Or they told me to stay in this situation. My family or the church or somebody said I needed to stay here to be a good wife. And so they are the ones who are responsible for my victimization. Or I did it. I provoked him. I caused this situation to happen. All right. And they refer to those as internal or external locuses of control. Okay. So the underlying assumption then again is that I attribute the thing that has happened to me either to something that I've done or I believe that I'm responsible for, or something outside of me that is responsible. That's the underlying assumption. And then the structure of the theory is how does that happen? How and this explanation for how that works. And so again, I said that Hyder's attribution theory looks at internal, external locuses of control. They also look at a whole list of other things, like 5 or 6 other things, as part of this how people attribute behaviors either outside of themselves or inside themselves that would need to be discussed under the structure. Okay, the structure in a theory critique is typically the largest part of the theory critique. Okay, if a theory critique on average is about 2.5 to 3 pages, the structure, because the underlying assumption is only a couple of sentences, the structure should be about 2 to 3 paragraphs of that. All right, maybe even more. All right. And then your strengths and weaknesses. Your strengths and weaknesses are derived from um, strengths are derived obviously from the strengths or the good parts of the theory. What does the theory do that's good? And then the weaknesses are where does the theory lack explanation? Okay, you can typically get these out of the articles that you pull. All right, or you can think about them yourself. You can, if you think about it critically, what does the theory do that allows you to use it well? All right, that would be a strength. And what does the theory do that you, or what does the theory lack in terms of its explanation for the problem that you're reviewing, or in general? Okay. All right, and then finally, and typically strengths and weaknesses are a paragraph each. All right, you want to come up with a couple of strengths, a couple of weaknesses in terms of the theory itself, and then policy implications. If your theory and you look back to the structure of your theory to determine what the policy implications are, because the structure of the theory is what the theory says should be happening to explain the thing under the review, or how it explains behavior, attitudes, beliefs. Okay, and so that's where policy implications come out of. The structure says that people looking back at attribution theory, or Hyder's attribution theory, says that behavior, people believe that either they're internally responsible or there's things externally responsible for their behavior, beliefs, or attitudes. Then internally, you would look for policy that might help somebody internally. So if I believe that I'm in a domestic violence situation because I caused the issue, all right, and no one should ever believe that they're the reason why they're being hit on or smacked around or beat up is because of something they did, then they need an attitude change. Okay, and so there needs to be a policy to deal with that attitude change. If they believe that um, oh, this is a good one. If they believe that they're in the domestic violence situation because police officers who responded to the the call for service didn't do anything, then there needs to probably be a policy change for police officers to note that in a domestic violence situation they need to remove parties from the scene, which is actually what has happened over the years. A policy came out of research similar to this to say that in a domestic violence situation, somebody needs to leave, all right? And it's typically the perpetrator of the violence that they remove from the scene, all right? And so those policies came out of research similar to this. And so research leads to policy changes, and these are the policy implications of policy that should be put in place as a result of the research that you're doing. All right, and so that's a real situation that research like this led to a policy that is now typically a policy that is implemented in all jurisdictions in the United States. All right.